This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz podcast.
Sleeping caps? Guillermo, put all this on the poll. Are you ready? Is the guy who insists on putting Jerry West third on the list of all-time shooting guards annoying?
I think he had him fourth.
No, he had him third. I had him Dwayne Wade. It was okay. Kobe Bryant at 2, West at 3, Wade at 4, and an argument ensued. Jerry West, by the way, 1-8 in the finals.
Yeah, but the logo.
And also nicknamed Mr. Clutch.
Yeah,
1-8 in the finals because, I guess Bill Russell existed. 1-8 in the finals. What do we do with his career? You're sitting here criticizing LeBron for the number of times he loses in the finals. Jerry West gets the logo and Mr. Clutch. 1-8 in the final. Privilege.
What a cushy spot for him, huh?
I mean, as history removes us from LeBron, like seriously, 40 years from now, we're going to be like, what the hell, man? What do you mean he was Mr. Clutch?
I have Bob Cousy fifth on my all-time point guard list. He's right behind John Stockton. But before Steve Nash.
Where do you put Jason Williams? What?
Huh. White chocolate?
Where do you put Jason Kidd?
Damn.
Whoa. The answer is point guard.
You could have played all 5, though.
Good answer. Good answer.
Put this on the poll as well, Guillermo. Did Pepsi blow it with the advertising thing? And also, do you like the sound of a good pencil sharpener? So I think that catches this up. We were talking about things you'd find in the Cody Hotel. Greg Cody is musty. What was the best of the things? I think the jiggling weight belt in the gym might have been the best of the things, but typewriter was good. The water basin, bed pans.
I like the hat rack.
Yeah, a hat rack and a coat rack. One of those a phonograph. It's because it's a high-end hotel.
Right.
The room service menu only serves soup and loaves of bread that don't have slices.
2 twin beds.
Is it 2 twin beds? Because I thought it was a coin-operated, heart-shaped vibrating bed. But, okay, put it on the poll. At Le Batard Show, Guillermo, in the Cody Hotel, do you find a heart-shaped vibrating bed that only takes coins or 2 twin beds?
My great-grandparents had 2 twin beds. It was shocking. Did any of yours?
My grandparents did.
Wow. Old school.
Really?
I wish I had my own bed.
That is some kind of old school. I know a grandmother who said with pride, no lie, said with pride, said it to my face, I was married 50 years and my husband never saw me without makeup. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Also, Lucy and Desi, the first television show that had couples in a bedroom. They put them in twin beds because because of the scandal of televising into your living room. And then we graduated years later to being offended by nipples. And then Sipowitz's butt was on television.
They said the S word on NYPD Blue, and it was a big deal.
What's the matter with us, man? Seriously, why are we so repressed? Like, really? Lucy and Desi had to have twin beds when they were married?
I love a cigarette vending machine in the lobby.
That's great.
It's great.
That's great. And also Tab. Just Tab in the lobby.
Is it in the lobby, or do you have like one of those mini bars in the room? You open it up and it's just Tab.
No, there can't be a mini bar. I was thinking of stuff that we could put, like if we could find a stove to put in, like if there is the equivalent of one of those extended stay hotels back in the 1800s, you have to have a whistling teapot.
Yes, you do.
Is there even a busy signal anymore? Do like today's kids know what a busy signal is? If you're under what age, is there such a thing when you call a telephone to get a busy signal?
It would be whenever call waiting came in, right? That would be.
But call waiting is 2 calls, and then that would be the busy signal after that if you've got 2 calls. But do you know if it exists? Put it on the poll, Guillermo. Do telephones still have busy signals? Or do today's, anyone under 15, do they know what a busy signal sounds like? Because we were talking about television. Please look up for me what year this happened. Television used to go off the air with the anthem. It used to.
Television used to go off the air.
Yes. At like 2 o'clock in the morning.
Just stop.
It would just stop. They play it. People would wake up because they would know that the televised day was over because we were playing the anthem.
I remember when I was 14 years old, I watched an entire episode of Chicago Hope because all the entertainment shows were saying, this is the first time someone's going to say the S word on network television. And I saw an entire episode just to have Mark Harmon say bleep happens towards the end, and it was an event.
Yes. Well, what was more of an event? Bleep happens by Mark Harmon or Sipowitz's butt? Because NYPD Blue, for some reason, I believe that ended his career. Big Harry Sipowitz.
Dennis Franz was very satisfied with how his career went. It was NYPD Blue, and that's pretty much it, right?
But I'm just saying that I feel like the tipping point on his career was his crack.
The most recent thing I have on TV just going dark at 2 a.m. is back in 1986. So I don't know, I feel like it was still going on like in the late 80s, maybe early 90s, but right now I have 1986. It would just cut to the national anthem and like a little, here, you'll be familiar with this, Dan. Look, hold on 1 second. Because it would cut to this graphic every time, right?
But we're on the radio.
I know. I'm just showing you the graphic because I can't explain that very well. But it'd be like static and a little circle, and we'll promote the station to tell you what channel it is, and just play the national anthem on a loop for 7 hours.
Remember when Mark Harmon was on game day? That was weird.
What happened there?
He was just awkward. He wasn't very good at it. I always hate the ones that just really disappoint. If you're gonna grace the game day stage and make picks, you got to be electric. You got to make an impact. You got to be A-Rod messing up the turnover chain, basically. And Mark Harmon did not entertain us. He was just doing straightforward stuff. No. Was that the same game that Eminem went in the booth? At least that was electric.
Oh yeah.
Was Mark Harmon poor man's Eminem? I'm sorry, poor man's Kevin Costner.
Ooh, that's you know what? That's a good one. Yeah. Can't afford Costner. Who's next on our list? Harmon.
Guillermo, put it on the poll, please. Was Mark Harmon poor man's Kevin Costner? Is it possible at all that this was Colangelo's wife? Is it possible at all in any way? Are you guys willing to consider the possibility that the media went into a frenzy for 24 hours ripping this guy, and it could just be a wife, protecting her husband or protecting her husband on social media? Is it possible?
Of course it's possible. And we weren't really kidding towards the end of the show. I was sort of coming around on this whole Colangelo didn't do it because it would be very easy to track whether or not he did this, and he would just look like an utter fool.
If you're sitting here denying it this strongly, man, maybe that's the only play if you've been caught red-handed, as, many baseball players taught us in Congress on steroids. Maybe the only play is to deny firmly and hope you can cover it up. But what if it was a family member?
I mean, what do you do there if it is a family member?
You forgive him and you apologize. You forgive him and you apologize. You can't, your wife shouldn't be doing that, but the idea, you have to, all of us would have to apologize. All of us who spent the day mocking. I demand it. Well, I demand an apology from all of you. That's right.
It's funny you brought this up because on this show, we were discussing before the show that none of us really accused Bryan Colangelo. We all thought that perhaps this was not Bryan Colangelo, that there was something we're not seeing here. You were the only one really accusing him. You said he was going to be fired by 1 o'clock. So we feel like the only one on this show that needs to issue a public apology is you.
It's a great job by Stugotz, totally glancing over the fact that he swore it was Hinkie.
Yeah.
Listen.
At least.
The investigation's ongoing. I mean, these lawyers are going to milk him for everything they got.
That's right. I just love the idea. There are a number of things to tackle here on this entire issue. But the Stugotz move would be if all of a sudden he pins it on his wife or it gets pinned on his wife, then the next move is, in order for us to continue to be right about the mocking and feel good about ourselves, is say, oh, he's telling his wife to do that. His wife's the scapegoat. We could keep moving it out to be right.
I'm all in on that one, man.
He's putting it on his wife. She's taking the hit.
I mean,
During Stugotz's hit on Golick and Wingo, they were matter-of-factly stating that, well, even if it's his wife, it still costs him his job. I don't think you can say that.
No.
Well, if it's his wife and he's Mike, if he has knowledge of it and he's dictating
Wait,
to
that's
his
something
wife.
else. Of course, Stugotz.
Well, there's so many details in there.
I know, but husbands and wives talk unless they're married to you, right?
Spoken to mine in forever.
This is your bedroom. This is your bedroom with Blue Chew. Blue Chew uses the same active ingredients as in Viagra or Cialis, but now comes in chewable form. Chewable means better, cheaper, and works faster than pills. No in-person doctor visit, no waiting in line, no more awkwardness. 100% online at BlueChew.com, where your first order is free. Just pay $5 shipping. Use promo code DAN at BlueChew.com and restart the party.
Don Le Batard.
I'm telling you, we are good here. Trust me. I've never let you down.
Stugotz.
It's like living a life. Imagine living your life, and every time you take a step, you know you might step on a landmine. That's my life. I'm married to a minefield, and he doesn't know that he's a minefield. It's just like, trust me, Dan, we got this, while cleaning the chocolate out of his teeth with his tongue.
This is the Don Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
A texter writes in, I can only imagine how incredibly infuriating it was to do the show before Stugotz was aware that he is the clown show caricature of a sports fan. I don't have to imagine it. I lived it, and it was every bit as infuriating as you can imagine.
Sorry.
But now, Stugotz is the epicenter of the sports fans, unshaven, smells bad,
Oh, yeah.
overreacts voice.
Yep.
And Stugotz is monitoring all sports radio to see where he can steal the takes. And instead of talking about it at the water cooler or bar with his friends to be smart, he just steals them and then repurposes them, recycles them, and comes on here and spreads them all over the network.
Giving away the secrets, Dan.
I know, but I've got to get the new listeners to understand what this is, especially when we're doing the show the way we've been doing it for the last hour and 15 minutes. But Stugotz thinks that we should just make Stephen A. the sports judge, that Stephen A. Smith should just be someone. He was mentioning that Josh Allen, when he's in trouble on a race issue, he calls Stephen A.
Whenever there's crisis, people in sports seem to call Stephen A., and I think they want Stephen A. on their side. Because
Did you put a T in crisis?
I don't think I did I?
Definitely did. Yeah.
Guillermo, put it on the poll.
I said crisis?
Yeah, that's exactly what
No
you
way. I said crisis. There's no way.
Guillermo, put it on the poll. Did Stugotz put a T in crisis?
Anyway, whenever there's a crisis, I'm telling you, like, it seems like people at sports, they call Stephen A. You know, you mentioned Josh Allen, and then yesterday, I heard Stephen A. talking about the fact that Bryan Colangelo had texted him, and then Stephen A. came out and said we should give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm just wondering how many times people who are in crisis, they call Stephen A., and Stephen A. doesn't have their back, and I feel like he's the sports judge.
If your name is Colangelo, there is a standard that comes along with that name because of Jerry. And to be associated with this would be pretty close to career suicide. In today's day and age, with these players and the power of social media and the fact that everybody has a voice, especially those who are high profile, let me tell you something. This is not good. Bryan Colangelo told me he had nothing to do with this. He's got that one burner account at Philly 1234567. That's it. He has nothing to do with this. I am telling you, he deserves the benefit of the doubt. But that's it. I think it's fair to assume he's innocent, but still investigate, like the Sixers are doing. And if it is found that Bryan Colangelo did this, Sixers are going to fire him.
I mean, all that's fair. We should always extend the benefit of the doubt, right? Except when laughter is involved. And that story was too rich yesterday. I'm going to feel bad, and the media should feel bad if it's learned that this was a loved one protecting him on the internet, and we made a whole lot of circumstantial leaps based on the Ringer story.
Right. Why the whole media, though, by the way?
Just everyone that was, come on, Stugotz. I know you don't want to be.
I had Sam Hinkie. I mean, I'm fine.
I know you don't want to be accountable for everything, but we were making a whole lot of fun of Bryan Colangelo yesterday, and we can't go back and apologize with the same sort of intensity that we mocked if we're wrong about this. And the way that he's denying this is very strongly. And I know we've got Ryan Braun sound denying stuff strongly, and I know we've got Rafael Palmeiro sound denying stuff strongly, and Mark McGuire not wanting to talk about the past, and Sammy Sosa forgetting how to speak English.
Dan, when you're accused of something bad, what you do is deny and call Stephen A. Smith.
Okay, and I want to get into this sports judge idea, but first let's just hear Ryan Braun, before getting suspended for many games, had a very adamant denial.
I've tried to respect this process, even though the confidentiality of the process was breached early on. I've tried to handle the entire situation with honor, with integrity, with class, with dignity, and with professionalism, because that's who I am, and that's how I've always lived my life. If I had done this intentionally or unintentionally, I'd be the first one to step up and say, I did it. By no means am I perfect, but if I've ever made any mistakes in my life, I've taken responsibility for my actions. I truly believe in my heart, and I would bet my life that this substance never entered my body at any point.
It's a strong denial. He swayed me.
He really
It was
sold
so
it.
strong that he swayed me. Like, I was plenty cynical, and I'm like, wow, that's awfully strong to deny it that way. And then you may or may not have learned that the urine collector was smeared after that, and there was a claim of anti-Semitism.
Mm-hmm. But they had dinner. The bronze and the urine collector.
Also, it should be noted, Dan always believes that there's a shark swimming in a mall after a big storm.
Yeah, why is that?
Sees an image, always texts me, can you believe this?
Well, the worst one is I thought that dog was talking on that talent show. Like, you don't, like the shark one you're making up, because that's not something I've always believed. That's something I believed one time, and it wasn't in a mall. It wasn't in a mall. You're misrepresenting me, but I think you're safe in saying I did think a dog on a talent show was talking and that it wasn't a ventriloquist. I think that's the better move. You know, a question I want to get into with you guys, we'll do it in the next segment. Bill Simmons runs The Ringer. The Ringer ran that story on Bryan Colangelo. If they had the same thing on Danny Ainge, do they run it? Wow. Good question. We discuss next.
Dame más gasolina.
I like your style, man. You are frisky today.
I mean, he loves the Celtics.
Right.
And he straddles the line between journalist and fan, and very successfully.
Yep.
And
Just if
he gets that story with Danny Ainge, does he do that? Does he do that to his team, to his GM, the GM who was doing a good job?
Of course he does.
Yeah.
After the season.
Yep.
After free agency, after the draft?
Not a distraction. We'll wait till August on that, depending on how the offseason goes.
Dan Le Batard.
I can make the argument that Calvin Johnson's the third best receiver ever.
Easily, yes.
Not easily, Stugotz.
No, you easily could. Look at the numbers. Easily could.
Stugotz.
Like, your contribution to this conversation was just an easily.
I was trying to, support you.
Keep your support.
Listen, you made a statement. I was supporting it with easily. That's what you do for a friend. What does my friend do back to me? Criticizes my support.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Chris and Roy, I have an assignment for you. In about 10 to 12 minutes, I want your top 10 movie villains in order. Mike Ryan was talking about movie villains in the local hour, and so I want the top 10 movie villains. I mean, for me, it's between Anton Chigurh in No Country for Old Men.
You love that movie.
And
man.
Hannibal Lecter. That's for me at the very top of the list, but this isn't my list. I want to get back to this question. Now, Bill Simmons is a friend of mine, and Bill Simmons, I respect his work, period. So I know many of you you guys love to snitch, and you love to get me in trouble with my media friends because Le Batard said this, and then what happens is we go on First Take, and Stephen A. Smith interrupts Molly to make sure that we're not making fun of him too much on the air. And we are making fun of him, but also he's the best to ever do it.
Yep.
And we're about to make him the sports judge where, Mike, you have that sound of him saying he would have won the OJ trial. And we also have that happy birthday sound that we could splice up. I would like callers to call in with to get rulings from Stephen A. Smith on things as Stugotz insists on making him the sports judge. You got to imagine he's a hanging judge, right? even though he's given the benefit of the doubt to Colangelo, we're assuming it's because Colangelo called him.
Right.
He's a hanging judge unless you call him.
Yes, 100%.
Right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. But if you call him, I mean, and he has some sort of relationship with you and he trusts you, then you're in a good spot. You are. You're in a good spot.
It's a smart move, man.
Yes.
Stephen A. Smith is the face of this network.
He is.
Stephen A. Smith is the voice of this network. It's either him or Scott Van Pelt. And it's a smart move if you want to dilute some of the sound in your life because you're in a scandal, to call Stephen A. and get your perspective out there through him, where he's telling everyone to extend you the benefit of the doubt. I wonder if it's someone in Colangelo's family who did this. It's juicier to think it was Colangelo doing it. It's juicier to think that someone framed him. But I'm going to feel bad if he's innocent and this was just a family member defending him and we all jump to conclusions based on a Ringer story. So anyways, journalism has changed a lot in 2018. Bill Simmons was at the forefront of how it's changed. He wrote in a way that gave voice to the sports fan. He became a popular journalist without journalistic training. He is someone who would make people chant at the Boston Garden because he had an uncommon power given to him by this network and by his allegiances to Boston. And so I just asked the question as an interesting journalistic hypothetical. This is not to rip Bill Simmons. This would be a difficult decision for people to make. Journalists have to make these kind of uncomfortable decisions all the time. But this is a Sixers story. And Bill Simmons cares about nothing the way he cares about the Celtics. Right. And what I'm asking you is, if this story was about Danny Ainge and it landed on the lap of the Ringer, what does Bill Simmons do? I have not talked to him about this. I don't know what he would do. I know that when I was an up-and-coming college student, I believed in the principles of journalism, and I wrote things about the University of Miami that got the University of Miami in trouble, and ended up, I went to the University of Miami, Sports Illustrated writes a cover story saying disband the program. Don't make your Pell Grant joke here.
I won't.
I didn't report anything about the Pell Grant.
Oh, I mean, a lot of people blame you.
I know a lot of people blame me, but they're blaming me for the wrong thing. I was not the one who reported financial aid fraud. I was the one who reported that, sexual misconduct was being, punished with laps, and that the football secretary was giving drugs to the players.
What is my friend who was a swimmer and a diver at UM at the time, speaking of laps, he would swim laps. Like, he thought that you were responsible for the Pell Grant story. He blames you. He still, to this day,
I know, they blame me for everything. The point is,
there were wanted posters with your face on.
There were wanted posters. Yeah. I saw one of them at a Monday Night Football game. Anyone who could see me in public drinking, I was in a Monday Night Football game. I was there on a date. I was in the parking lot, hammered, when someone gave me one of the wanted posters. If anyone sees Le Batard drinking, please, there's a reward.
How'd that go with the date?
It was a fun night. It was a good night.
If you could go back in time and you could choose one of the articles to write again, would you choose the Pell Grant one since you get the blame for it anyways?
No, I didn't.
It'd be the one I'd choose.
No, that was a nightmare time in my life, because not only did I get beat on that story, I didn't understand what the hell I was doing.
Right.
Like, I didn't know. I'm calling district attorneys, and
But no one remembers the other one. They just remember the Pell Grant story.
No, that's just the thing, though. You remember the Pell Grant one. The other one is the one everyone remembers. It's where Sports Illustrated decided it was going to run a cover saying University of Miami should disband its program. Regardless. Wow, how'd we get that self-involved? Yeah. The point is...
You asked me not to go there.
The point is, 25 years later, what's happened to journalism? Like, I don't want to chase down misbehaving kids for the NCAA. You know what I mean?
Yes. Listen, if I'm Simmons, okay, and if it's the Celtics and Danny Ainge, I'm sitting on that news until after the free agency period, until the ink is dry on these contracts, okay? I'm holding back the news. And what I am absolutely doing is going after the Sixers, because that's the team that the Celtics are competing with.
I'm not accusing him of that.
I'm just saying, if you were.
I'm not accusing him of that. Just so we're clear on this University of Miami stuff. What are you laughing about?
I mean, it will follow you forever. Yeah, it will follow you no matter how much you push against it. You were the guy that brought down the University of Miami.
Do you regret it? I mean,
do I regret the story I wasn't involved in?
Only have yourself to blame. I mean,
all right, you know what? Now what I'm going to make you guys do, because every time we have this damn conversation, you guys perpetuate this bull bleep every damn time by just telling people again and again that I did do it, and it doesn't matter how many times I deny it. I want you to you tell me which story is better. Guillermo, go find the stories that I wrote that made Sports Illustrated write that cover story and see how much better you know what I want credit for? Don't blame that Pell Grant thing. I had the better story. It was more damn interesting, the one I had, because the football players were in my dorm room playing Tecmo Bowl with me when they weren't winning championships and punching the pizza guy.
So you weren't satisfied with how buried the University of Miami got, huh? You wanted them to get more punished?
I did not get the University of Miami in trouble that ended up with them penalized. I got the University of Miami in trouble that looked really bad. There was a rapper on the sidelines putting bounties on Notre Dame players, and the money was being held by the team priest.
According to Dan Le Batard's Wikipedia page, Miami Herald, under career, Miami Herald. Le Batard began his work at the Miami Herald in 1990 and is a columnist for its sports section. His first major work for the Herald was to investigate his former college's football team breaking the Miami Hurricanes football team Pell Grant scandal.
Oh, $2. That's not what I asked you to get. Get the stories I wrote. Just because you're in there fiddling around trying to undermine me with my Wikipedia edits.
Nothing more credible than Wikipedia, man.
Buy low, sell high.
$2.
Time for some ads.
Guillermo, this is what I'm telling you to do. With top 10 movie villains that we're doing in a second, find all the juicy details from the story I actually wrote. Because they were funny. Except for the ones that were criminal. Some of those were funny, too.
But the Pell Grant one, that put you on the map.
I'm a one-trick pony, literally. I show up at kids' parties and act cute. That's pretty much it. So excuse me for being bitter. When Geico says not only could we save you money on car insurance, but we do more. Like give you 24/7 access online, over the phone, or even via our award-winning mobile app. Well, ooh la la. Aren't they multi-talented? Hey, I said organic carrots.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
Dan Le Batard.
Ooh. Guillermo, sassy.
Stugotz.
You're sexy when you're sassy.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
I know everyone in our audience knows that winning makes everything better, but the way that we appreciate people when we consistently see them win is always interesting to me. Also interesting to me, Lamar Odom, when he's your best player, you're the Miami Heat that's 42-40, or you're the Clippers that underachieve. When he's your fourth or fifth best player, you're winning the championship with Kobe Bryant. Robert Horry always had great teammates, and if he's your fifth or sixth or seventh best player, he's going to get put into a lot of spots, dragged there by his teammates where he gets to be.
Big shot Bob.
And so, Andre Iguodala, when he was the number one option for Philadelphia, he was the 8th seed in a very weak East. But now, since then, because he plays with players who are better than him, he's a finals MVP. He's at the wrong end of one of the most famous plays in the history of the sport, which is LeBron James chasing him down, and now we're all talking. We're noticing his value in the last series. You all saw it. You saw his value as they throw Looney out there after Cook, after just different guy that they're throwing out there, and you're like, who are these people?
Right.
McCaw.
Yep. Do you have any concern? Because we have no idea if Iguodala is going to play. Does that change anything for you?
I don't have any concern. And by the way, I've got a quibble here with ESPN because I don't like how they use stuff from our show. We're going to get to that in a second. The only stuff they use from me, it's like it's infuriating. Who's in charge of that account?
I mean, this was so funny, you getting mad at that. You said it.
I know I said it, but why is that the thing? Of all the things we do on this show, we talk for 4 hours a day. For me to say, I said the most obvious thing, that LeBron is a historic underdog. Like, it's a statistical thing that's a fact.
Would you rather them go with it was Sam Hinkie's fault?
I mean, I'd like for them to portray on their giant Twitter account of ESPN something that is more reflexive of our show. For example, the promo. Can you guys get this for me, please? The promo that they played today is what I would want them spreading around, which is Greg Cody having a coughing fit on air, not me saying that LeBron is a historic underdog. Like, that's not how I want them selling our stuff.
I mean, they just put a graphic out there at ESPN. They got to start the national conversation, Dan.
Mike, tell them to do better. Whoever's in charge of that.
Tell at ESPN.
Yes, tell at ESPN to do better.
I mean,
do stuff that reflects our show. Don't grab the one dumb LeBron thing that is the most obvious thing in the world, slap a picture of mine from 15 years ago on it, and then tell the people to feed. Like, do better. What's so hard about that?
I was so proud of you. I mean,
oh, for the love of God. Anyway,
you made it.
Time now for Chris's and Roy's top 10 movie villains. Let's bang through these theatrically with all the production value in the world. Number 10, Chris, your 10th best movie villain of all time.
Michael Myers.
Roy, what is your 10th best movie villain of all time?
Stephen from Django Unchained.
Chris, your 9th best movie villain of all time.
The bees at the end of My Girl.
Oh, that was so sad.
Kills Macaulay Culkin. I cried.
Yeah. Roy, number 9.
Killmonger from Black Panther.
Wow, prisoner of the moment. Chris, number 8.
Ivan Drago.
Roy, number 8.
Darth Vader from Star Wars.
Chris, number 7.
Sid, Toy Story.
Roy, number 7.
Simon Phoenix from Demolition Man.
Whoa. Chris, number 6.
The Icelandic hockey team, D2 Mighty Ducks.
Wow.
Roy, number 6.
Nino Brown, New Jack City.
5, Chris.
Danny DeVito's Penguin, Batman Returns.
What? No!
He crushed that role.
No! Terrible. The whole movie was terrible. 5, Roy.
What? Sure enough, Last Dragon.
4, Chris.
Ivan Ooze, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Number 4, Roy.
Debo from Friday.
Chris, number 3.
Scar, Lion King.
Oh.
Chris, Roy, number 3.
Alonzo from Training Day.
Number 2.
Good one.
Number 2, Chris.
The Stepdad in Rookie of the Year.
Oh, yeah.
He's my client!
Number 2, Roy.
Bishop from Juice.
Number 1, Chris.
I have a child. Billy Zane.
Oh, wow.
Billy Zane. That wasn't the character's name. Billy Zane.
It was Billy Zane. Yeah, it's Billy
Cal.
Was it Cal? I don't remember his actual name. Roy, the number 1 movie villain of all time, according to Roy Bellamy, is...
The Warden from Shawshank Redemption. Don Le Batard.
Finally, Jane's Addiction frontman, Perry Farrell.
Stugotz.
Perry Farrell. Farrell? Perry Farrell.
This is the Don Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
I sit here today incredibly offended by the personal attack that this man has put against me.
In a world with hot takes, his takes might be the hottest.
Kevin Durant is the one that's lying.
Kevin Durant is in too deep.
You know, I made a mistake.
With a man you don't want to make an enemy out of. The Slim Reaper versus the suit with 400 buttons.
I don't want to hear from you, and nobody else should either.
McDonald's All-American.
Am I human? Do you look at me that way?
Versus McDonald's commercial.
Had I had to come on the air that next day, I can promise you it would have been very bad.
Stephen A. Smith.
Forget the numbers. You don't need them. Look at his eyes.
Versus Kevin Durant and them boys.
You the real MVP.
You won't want to be on his journey hit list.
You don't want to make an enemy out of me. And I'm looking right into the camera. And I'm going to say it again. You do not want to make an enemy out of me. I'm not having it.
He's writing your fate. And he's up against a deadline.
Guillermo, put it on the poll. Are you surprised that Chase Utley is still in the league? Texter writes in, it seems counterintuitive, but I think Stugotz would do well in jail. he would instantly make himself indispensable in some way, and he would play everyone off each other and be untouchable.
I could see that working. I could
unsee you being a vending machine for sex in jail. Go ahead, put it on the poll, Guillermo. Would Stugotz do well in jail?
You don't think I could talk my way through that, or
I mean, you're
just be a guy that's important to some people, the right people?
I think you could be a guy who could get things. I do think that is in play, but I think one of those things would be a shiv because you lied to somebody and they caught you. And
lying doesn't go over well. I don't think.
I mean, probably not. Yeah. Bill Belichick was photographed from inside a Chick-fil-A going through a drive-thru. It felt invasive in a way that's going to get somebody in trouble. I hate firing low-level employees, but you can't be at Chick-fil-A and taking a picture of Bill Belichick as he comes through the drive-thru and then posting it on the internet.
Sounds like I was running that Chick-fil-A.
You understand, though? Like, that's not something you could be doing. I'm guessing someone got in trouble there. I hate that the only people I fire are low-level workers, but if you betray Peyton Manning by reporting to people that he didn't leave much of a tip in your restaurant, or you take a picture of Belichick-fil-A.
You're fair with this. I mean, you tried to fire Colangelo yesterday.
You think he goes chicken sandwich or chicken nuggets?
Ooh. What do you do?
It depends, actually. Mostly the sandwich, chicken sandwich.
I think the bigger question here is which sauce?
Polynesian.
Polynesian would be my guess, but there's the Chick-fil-A sauce. There's so many ways you can go.
Well, if I go with the sandwich, I go mayo on the sandwich with extra pickles.
Oh, you're an animal.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
Guillermo, how's your research coming here as you realize, scouring the internet, that I did not have anything to do with that Pell Grant story that got the University of Miami in trouble, but I did have something to do with that Sports Illustrated cover that ended up with SI at a time that SI mattered, telling the University of Miami it should disband its entire program.
It's ongoing, but I will point this out. In this article I found by you and Ken Rodriguez from 1992, there was an interesting little paragraph that said, the NCAA requires that if a school has a drug testing program, it must be followed. NCAA investigators also will look into possible violations such as $173,744 in Pell Grant fraud and players being paid for performance by ex-players and rap star Luther Campbell.
I was beaten on that story, and that story came out after our story. You think I'm throwing that in? Deep in a story. Now, I can be accused of that when I reported that the Dallas Cowboys had a White House, something they called the White House, for having sex with women who weren't their wives. I threw that in a 20th paragraph of a story about Eric Rett and sex in the NFL for some reason. That I buried the lead on. The champion Cowboys.
You wrote a story on Eric Rett?
I wrote a story about sex in the NFL. You know what was funny about that story is I had a good relationship with Derek Thomas, the late Derek Thomas, right up until I called him and asked him if the fight between him and Shannon Sharpe in a Monday Night Football game, where Derek Thomas, who was a pillar of professionalism, got ejected from the game because he kept fighting with, blabbermouth, gasbag Shannon Sharpe, who has turned it into a career over Shannon Sharpe just giving him identifying marks of a woman they'd both been with that Derek Thomas cared about more than Shannon Sharpe did. And I lost Derek Thomas there with that question. Like, he didn't want to have anything to do with me ever again.
Surprised.
I mean, it's a good question, is it not?
Oh, it is.
If you're ejected from a Monday Night Football game for fighting with Shannon Sharpe, wouldn't you like to know what Shannon Sharpe was saying?
100%. It's a great question.
Did you ask that just directly, matter-of-factly? Yeah. Did you soften him up a little bit before you went into that
How's that
process?
Work? Yeah. How's that work?
Yeah, you softened someone up before that, and then you asked that question, and I heard a dial tone after that.
Right. You didn't soften him up enough, I guess.
Evidently not. Okay, Guillermo, I'm about to fight you in a way that's going to get me fired with human resources. You've had 2 segments to find better stuff, and all you found is the Pell Grant stuff, again accusing me of this when I know I didn't do it. I don't know what else to tell you guys about. I'm a little more familiar with my career than Wikipedia.
There's lots of things that were going on with this team, Dan. Lots of things.
Okay, but this is what I'm saying to you. As you guys continue to accuse me of that financial aid fraud story, what I'm telling you is that the story I wrote had more scintillating details that
Right.
you would like than the one you guys are pinning to me.
I want to be clear. I'm not accusing you of it. I wasn't down here. I'm not really that familiar with the
You've
story.
been
I'm just
accusing me of it for 10 years.
Listen, credible people that I know and trust who were athletes at UM at the time, they're blaming you, okay?
A swimmer, Stugotz.
I mean, listen, he was in the Olympics. I mean,
It is funny. I know for a fact you didn't do it because I read those articles and I know the history. But if I find it hilarious that this is a part of your history that you cannot escape.
Well, the part that I find hilarious about it is what I'm objecting to is you guys are pinning the more boring story on me. I don't mind the claim that I hurt my school. I really don't. I don't care about like the fan allegiance of that.
No,
I was
I
a
do.
journalist I know you do.
Everyone else.
I was a journalist
exactly.
and I was doing reporting. I wasn't a columnist then. I wasn't giving opinions. I was doing reporting, and the reporting that I did was facts. It was facts.
When I go to Canes games, I'm a proud season ticket holder now. When I go to Canes games, I hear it. It makes my time at a Miami Hurricanes game less enjoyable because I'm paying for your sins.
how are you received when you go to a Canes game? Like how they boo you?
With hugs. No,
Oh,
man,
really?
our show, this is the most popular I've ever been. That's why
Awesome.
that's why
I'm
none of
happy
this
for you.
criticism bothers me. What do you got, Guillermo?
So Beth San Martino, secretary to assistant coaches from 1989 to 1994, said she often bought marijuana for players and smoked it with them in their rooms, including the night before the 1994 Fiesta Bowl.
Woof.
That's good. That's a good fact, right? Thank you, Chris. Like, if you read that right now, I mean, I understand that the stigma on marijuana has fallen, but imagine it now 24 years ago.
Campus police clashed with players so often, Erickson received late-night calls from him to come, or for him to come to the dorms to help control players. In one incident, an officer said he feared becoming a victim.
Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh at that. Those programs were crazy.
There's a lot of very serious things here. You know how the stigma on marijuana has sort of dissipated since? Yeah. There's some stigmas that have actually become even more taboo.
Well, yeah, the sex crimes. The sex crimes.
Yeah, there's a lot of those. Yeah.
The current controversy, whether Erickson, who left Miami in January to take over as a coach of the Seattle Seahawks, withheld positive drug tests from D to keep players such as Warren Sapp eligible, is the latest sign Miami made compromises off the field to maintain dominance on it.
It's a real snooze fest.
Really? You find that boring, huh? The coach hiding drug test?
The Pell Grant story.
Really? The coach hiding drug test to keep Warren Sapp eligible.
Yeah, your Pell Grant story was way better.
Yeah.
This is your bedroom. This is your bedroom with Blue Chew. Blue Chew uses the same active ingredients as in Viagra or Cialis, but now comes in chewable form. Chewable means better, cheaper, and works faster than pills. No in-person doctor visit, no waiting in line, no more awkwardness. 100% online at BlueChew.com, where your first order is free. Just pay $5 shipping. Use promo code DAN at BlueChew.com and restart the party.
Dan Le Batard.
Marriage at some point, I think for a lot of people, they get down to, and this is really a sad part about marriage, where you're just having sex one day a week. And that one day a week is Sunday. And so I love Sundays, but I hate everything I have to do leading up till Sunday, which is essentially agree with everything my wife says and does everything she asks me to do. And I'm only doing that for the Sundays. Because if I don't do it, there ain't no Sundays. And I can't live without my Sundays.
Stugotz.
I wonder if Abby hates Sundays.
Oh, she despises them.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
So we told you yesterday about this time that NFL owners, when deposed, said that they basically got squeezed by Donald Trump on the anthem. And I just would ask you this, and if this show ends, my guess is the place that it will end. Like if I get into substantive trouble that causes me a problem at this network that I can't recover from, my guess is if it comes to a fight between me and something I've said about the NFL, and the NFL having a partnership with ESPN, the NFL being very powerful, the NFL, when you make playmakers and it's good content, and if we'd kept doing that, ESPN would look far different today than it did whatever it was 15 years ago when we got into the content game in a way that was aggressive. The NFL got upset about it, and then playmakers disappeared. It was a show that people were watching. ESPN doesn't do that kind of thing anymore.
Right.
We've got partnerships with teams. I understand why the NFL wouldn't want that show on the air. But, like, I have legitimate, such that it is, right? You can't do this job with fear, and there's no point in, you can't do it well with fear. But there is the fight where I say something about the NFL, the wrong thing about the NFL, and it won't be like the fight with Manfred. Baseball doesn't matter to ESPN the way that football matters to everybody. But the idea that Trump squeezed these guys, man, what's the point of having power and money if you fold like that? Like, is it just to make money? Like, that's it? Like, what's the point of having power and money if you can get squeezed by a guy who in New York was laughed at because of how he made his money, where there's real money from people who have big money and big power.
It's the office, though, maybe, not the it's the position, right?
I know, I understand it's the position, but what's the point of having money and power if all you're going to do is unemploy a kneeling guy, and when a real fight arrives, you get squeezed because it's an easy issue for him, and you don't have the strength of your conviction to use your power and money for anything other than to accrue more power and money. The money you're going to use, the power you're not. Like, what's the point?
I mean, I guess you're right. You have that power. You have a platform. You have people who will support you. You're an owner of a team. Your players will support you. Like the Jets owner came out and said, listen, like, I'm going to eat any fine. My players can do whatever they want. And that bought him a lot within that locker room. But I guess your larger point is right. You have that money. You have that power. You're going to be squeezed by a guy you were laughing at a couple of years ago.
I don't get that part, man. When you got the Baltimore Ravens owner asking us to pray for him because they've got to make a decision on a backup quarterback. Like, dude, you got money and power. Do something with it other than sit in a skybox like royalty that doesn't actually use any of the power. If you want to fight about something, if you want to have a principle about something other than money, this would be a good place. It doesn't even require bravery, really. You've got power and money.
But if you have people that you trust that are saying, hey, if you do this, it's going to run off customers, what do you do there?
Stugotz, what about the black customers that are being run off? Does anyone care about them?
I understand that. I'm asking if you have people that you...
Where are the people telling them, hey, you're running off black customers now because now you've made these two guys unemployed and you're blackballing guys, and on top of that, you're hijacking an issue that's about racism and police brutality and wrapping it in the flag. Like fight. Fight. If you believe in something, fight. You've got FU money. What's the point of having FU money unless every once in a while you're going to say FU?
I understand everything that you're saying, and I understand the point in the kneeling. However, this is one of those weird cases where two opposite sides find it offensive. If something offends people, it is indeed offensive. So no matter right or wrong, don't get bogged down in that. If a large portion of your fan base is offended by police brutality, but also a large portion of your fan base is offended by people kneeling during the anthem, I mean, we can get caught up in ways, but like you can understand why several people find that offensive in our audience. There's several military families out there. So you have to choose. You're in this almost impossible situation where you have to choose, who am I choosing to offend here? Because I have something that's going to offend people either way.
Yeah, but what you're consistently choosing to do is offend your black customers in what is a league where you're making your money in the majority, off of black bodies.
I understand, and that bottom line is a terrible thing. But is it fair to say that they're not? It's not as sinister as that. They're choosing to...
I'm not saying it's an easy position. I'm saying that power and money afford you the ability to rise above easy or hard positions because you have conviction or principles about something other than making money.
Yeah, it appears to be a business decision because I don't think that they just saw it out like, let's offend the black people. I think that let's appease the people that are more likely to walk away from our sport.
Or let's just keep the majority placated. Let's keep the majority of our white money customers placated. It's a business decision, and it's also cowardice.
Dan Le Batard.
What did I do today? I didn't blame white people for anything. Is it because I said, can you imagine if Cam Newton did Carson Palmer's sideline dance?
Could have been that. Could have been, body of work, lifetime achievement.
Stugotz.
Well, I didn't do anything today.
Yet.
Give me time. I got 25 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
before I could blame white people for something.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
A texter writes in, speaking for many, of course, when he writes or she writes, grow up, it's business. And my rebuttal would be, grow up, it's racism. Like, stop making it about the flag, man. What you just saw happen is Colin Kaepernick was not allowed to kneel, and so the owners in that league knelt before Trump.
Right.
That's what you just saw happen.
But you're asking, hey, stop making it about the flag. And Dan, it is for a lot of people exactly about that. It's about the flag. Don't kneel for that thing.
Okay,
you know?
I don't want to cover this ground again because I know most of you are tired of it. And I understand what Mike is saying about it not being a winning position. But I haven't seen a whole lot of bravery from anybody with the power and money to be brave. Anybody. I've seen Jerry Jones dance. I've seen Stephen Ross believe something and then get squeezed by the president.
Can't the players do something?
Yeah.
The powerful players.
I mean, the players can do something, yes. And everyone's got to risk something in order to do it. You got to risk money in order to do it. Talking about it in certain ways, which we may be headed toward, I may be risking that money for all of us because the NFL can use this FU power on this microphone. It just can't use it where it matters. It's chosen not to.
But everybody talks about it as if the players don't have an option. They've been given the option. I kind of think that everyone's sort of punching on the NFL here where nobody really has a good solution. The players who are offended by these things can stay in the locker room. And Lord knows they're going to get some grief if they stay in the locker room because that'll just turn into the new kneeling. I just don't understand. We're so conscious of what offends people. This is a very rare instance where it offends everybody.
You are boxing the players in because you have the support of power. You are power and FU money. And Stugotz told you what the Jets owner did by believing in something. You don't have to agree with Kaepernick's viewpoint. You don't have to agree with kneeling in front of the flag. You can agree with everything Mike's saying. Mike's being eminently reasonable. But what you're doing is right now you're isolating the protesting player in a way that you're sequestering him in a place while making money off largely black bodies where his protest causes him a personal shame, and he's the only one who has to endure that with no cover. It's easier if your boss is willing to support you in a way that's human because he cares about you, the one making him money, in a way that's more relatable and human than the customer who's giving him money.
And it's a terrible position for that player. I feel terribly for him, and I also feel bad for anybody who's offended by someone kneeling, whether they're getting the point or not. They just have a hard line where you don't disrespect the flag, and you can't really reason with somebody about the flag in several cases. There might be military ties or whatnot. I just choose not to be arbitrary with who I'm choosing to offend here, because everyone seems to be getting offended by it.
Do you want Colin back in the league? Do you want the...
I don't want to talk about it anymore. Like, I'm good moving off of this subject. It's tired terrain, and I'm sorry I even spent this much time on it because it's all of it. It's just the entire conversation has been hijacked as we've got Kim Kardashian going to meet the president and talking about prison reform. I like what the New York Post did with its headline. They called her Kim Thong-un.
If you can step away from it, if I showed you this newspaper 10 years ago, you would think this is an episode of Black Mirror, right? This is amazing.
But Kim Kardashian is doing more than the owners of the NFL. Like, she's actually going to talk to them about prison reform. You've arrived in a special place. You've arrived in a special place in hell where Kim Kardashian has more FU money and more power than the guys who run the league, than Jerry Jones. Put it on the poll, Guillermo. Who's got more FU power and money, Kim Kardashian or Jerry Jones? Let's switch topics here because I was bothered. I was agitated by the way ESPN represented our show, really. It's not how ESPN represented me. It's how our show is not sports take show.
Can't wait to see how they represent it today.
In the middle of you being upset about ESPN's Twitter account posting a graphic with a quote saying that this is the biggest underdog he'd ever be in the history of sports, blah, 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 I was scrolling down my emails and I got contacted by a segment producer from Get Up linking that tweet. Any way I can get this sound.
All right. So if you're not familiar with what we're talking about.
Oh, boy.
Well, we've already had this fight with ESPN Radio, right? So we might as well have it with ESPN as well. The ESPN Twitter account. ESPN Radio would use the sound clips with the echoes of Stugotz has an opinion and it's strong. Dan thinks LeBron is the greatest, better than MJ. And then it gets circulated all over the network. And it's not how I want our show to be represented. ESPN Radio has learned to do this better after much badgering from us. And so the promo I heard today made me smile because I'm like, yes, this is how you represent us.
Oye, amigo, it is the Dan Le Batard Show on ESPN Radio.
I'm hoping Greg makes it through the show. I mean,
yeah.
You good?
No, I'm fine.
Cody is so dying to talk politics.
All right. Well, right now he's just dying.
The Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN.
Whoever did that should take over the social media department.
You know why? Because it was me who did that.
Oh.
All right. Let's put Roy in charge then. Yes. Let's go, Black Power. Put him in charge of ESPN Twitter. Let's go. Because he's doing a better job. Who's doing that? Who is sending out LeBron is a historic underdog? Thanks for nothing. All you did was have Cleveland fans crawling up my...
See, but that gets people talking.
Yeah.
Cody dying on the air doesn't really get the people talking the same way.
Nope. It's amazing that you would think that a guy dying on air would generate more conversation, but not here.
I'm going to reply to this segment producer from Get Up just with the sound of Greg Cody dying.
I'm just saying, how long do we have to work here before the people who work here learn how to represent us correctly? How many people do we have to teach at our own network? Don't do that. Don't do that from the ESPN Twitter account.
Oh, but our show casts a wide net, Dan. Sometimes you're going to find that. Hell, you did say that on this show. Now you've said several other ridiculous things.
What did I say?
You said that
you
thing.
Said that thing.
Yeah.
You said that thing in question.
Yeah.
You can't deny that you did that. You said that.
You don't want him to use it, then don't say the thing, man. I mean, that's it.
You were breaking down the series.
I try to say the thing because I want them to use it. You should not try to say that. Just don't say it. Don't say those things.
What's the thing?
You know the things,
man.
Know
the thing.
You did it again today with the things.
The thing. The thing is saying.
When did I do it again today?
Believe me, you'll see later.
Oh yeah. Oh, he did the thing. Today.
I did the thing.
Oh yeah.
The anthem thing is the thing. The anthem thing is the thing.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yep.
In fact, I hope at ESPN fires back.
Well, I think that ESPN is afraid of that thing now. Because the president is involved. I meant of the company. The president of the United States is also involved.
Let's be careful not to say another thing.
Actually, I didn't mean the president of the company. It goes higher than that at our company.
Right. But now Greeny's involved, I mean.
No. What's he saying? Get up and find out.
Awkward transition. Time for some ads.
Greeny said that this was the best rivalry in sports.
He did.
I mean, 4 straight finals. I mean, hard to argue.
It really is. Right? Wish I thought of it. I mean, definitely better than Red Sox Yankees, right?
Can you imagine meeting 4 straight times in an NBA Finals and no one outside of Mike Greenberg considers this one of the greatest rivalries in the history of sports? It's pretty amazing.
I saw also on Get Up that Jay Williams is picking the Cavs.
Well,
what?
I haven't heard anyone do that.
I picked them first. Just so
that's already said.
I haven't heard anyone credible do that.
Oh, well, that's unfair.
The Browns DB.
Earned, but unfair. Actually, not even unfair.
Everyone in the neighborhood knew about Bobby. Bobby, the basketball boy, they called him. Bobby wanted to go pro someday, so he was always out in the driveway shooting hoops. But one day, his mom came out and told him,
"Hey, your wife wants you to take out the trash?"
His mom was visiting, and Bobby was a grown man. He had kind of missed his window. Plus, no one had ever seen him actually make a basket. But on the other hand, Bobby had heard how Geico could save him money on car insurance, so he switched and saved. So it was all good.
Don Le Batard.
It's crazy how far this program has fallen, and now we do this thing, and man, do I hate this thing.
I love this thing.
Stugotz.
Do you even know what I'm going to say?
I think so. I hope so. I have a feeling, Dan. I have no idea.
This is the Don Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
So the texters and tweeters are agitated the way they often are when we talk race or anthem or the American flag. And we are in a culture now where you take away the show from Roseanne, and then you also hear a lot of people, well, we should take away Bill Maher's show. There's a celebration and a joy around the taking away of shows. And someday, perhaps, they will take away this show, and you will be able to do your victory lap. But for now, I work next to my father every day in a bar on South Beach, and I work with my friends laughing every day. So for now, I'm winning. All of you who are coming after me, you lose. And you could keep doing that. Eventually, you'll get your victory lap, and I'll go do something else. But for now, you lose.
Tone.
No, my tone is pretty good.
Tone.
My tone, no, it was arrogant. No, wait a minute.
Also, I feel like I'm going to be cutting that up for a future parade of gas bags of some sort.
Wait a minute. Oh, yeah, a future, the day after I'm fired.
Yeah.
Let's play some Guillermo's epic sound of the day here, even though this may have been 4 or 5 years ago, this particular sound.
Time now for Guillermo's epic sound of the day. It is going to be epic.
Hey, guys.
Hey, Guillermo.
Real TBT we got today in the epic sound. Dan, you familiar with Hawk Harrelson?
Yes, he's one of the best.
It's his 33rd year as the White Sox announcer, TV announcer, and 6 years ago, Hawk Harrelson was pretty upset with something that went on in a game when a pitcher was kicked out of a game for throwing behind a batter. Here's the sound.
What are you doing? He threw him out of the ball game. You gotta be raping me. What in the hell are you doing? What are you doing, Wagner? You gotta be kidding me. That is so bad. That is absolutely brutal.
That's incredible.
That is unbelievable. I'll tell you what. They have got to start making guys be accountable. That is totally absurd. That just tells you he has blue. Here's an umpire in the American League knows nothing about the game of baseball. They have got to do something about this, I'll tell you. They got some guys in this league that have no business umpiring.
Yeah, that's...
They have no business umpiring because they don't know what the game of baseball is about. And he is one of them. We have always had problems with this guy right here. He ought to be suspended, and if they want to keep him as an umpire, send him back to school and teach him what this game is about.
Yeah.
It's courtesy WGN.
It's a great contribution for the color guy.
Put this on the poll, Guillermo. Should What Are You Doing, Wagner replace Do You Believe in Miracles as the greatest call in the history of broadcasting? Because the Wagner is comedically perfect. What are you doing, Wagner? It just referring to the umpire. That should be a tone fine, but it's delightful. Referring to the umpire by only his last name is magical.
Sound of the Day is brought to you by Dollar Shave Club. Upgrade the shaving with a fresh blade whenever you want for a fraction of the price. Join DollarShaveClub.com today.
All right, this allows us to do a bunch of different announcer rants.
Yes.
Let's continue. Let's segue from What Are You Doing, Wagner to our favorite Ed Malloy.
Down by 2, 198, inbound to Love on the left side with one dribble, goes up for the shot, it's blocked by Marion, the ball comes into the arms of Dalibert, the horn sounds and the ball game is over. The Timberwolves are screaming for a foul, there was none called. Rubio off to Love, oh, that's a foul! That is unbelievable. The referees are booed as they go off the floor. Brutal! David Guthrie is right there. He didn't have the guts to call it. Also, Ed Malloy!
Oh, great. So great. Oh, Ed Malloy will never be topped, not even by What Are You Doing, Wegner, even though What Are You Doing, Wegner is better than Do You Believe in Miracles. But is this Hawks announcer berating the Miami Heat? Does it deserve to be in the conversation?
Now down low, it's going to be Al Horford. He drives. He goes up and gets knocked out hard. Oh, my goodness. The Heat have resorted to thuggery. And Al Horford slow to get up. Miami, they're down by 19, and they have to resort to the street stuff. That should be a flagrant foul. These Miami Heat players are street thugs.
And here, Stugotz, is the terribly tinny sound of Dave Lamont at a Florida Atlantic game. Yeah, the broadcasting quality is not good.
Breaking out the good stuff.
But he is also furious.
You cannot tell me that's a flag. That's not possible. Where's the commissioner? Where's Wright Waters? Where's Wright Waters? It took him a while to get into the flag. He is defenseless. Don't you understand? Throw a flag. Third down. Dewey throws over the middle, behind the receiver, incomplete. It'll be 4th down and 3. Van Camp took a helmet-to-helmet shot regardless, even if he wasn't in the slot. You know what? I don't really care if you people look at me in the press box. You know what? I don't care. That's a flag. And I'll fight any one of you if you want it. That's the mood I'm in at the moment.
Was that the 53 Sugar Bowl?
1853. The most recent sound we played there was the Hawk Harrelson sound from 6 years ago.
I think the Lamont one is the best.
I think that ESPN and Disney should reconsider this whole thing about giving my arrogant ass the microphone.
Don Le Batard. Let's get it crunk up on them, hop them on them, in the dancer, we got you open doors, open for Stugotz. Don't need no direction, holleration, so just stand for me, let's get it percolated, while you're ready, so just stand for me, everybody get on up, cause you know not ready to This is the Don Le Batard Show, with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
So this network was swallowed yesterday, a Wednesday, a slow news Wednesday, dirty secret Wednesday, where the sports media doesn't have enough sports news, so we are grateful for anything. And we got a doozy yesterday where Bryan Colangelo, the Ringer, reported a story, and it swallowed the president of the 76ers. That author will be on with us in 30 minutes. Before we get to him, though, I would like to set up the idea, because Brian Windhorst gave voice to what you were talking about, Stugotz, which is, he was saying the bigger question is, who's the source? Who is the source on this? Why is there a source that would reach out to a Ringer writer to do this to Colangelo? Here's Brian Windhorst on that subject.
A lot of executives aren't questioning, whether it's him or not. A lot of them believe that it is. They're questioning who the source was. What was the motivation of the source who leaked this story? What else does that source have on other people? What could this mean for other people in the league who potentially have damaging information? That's what people are fascinated by. And that's one of the reasons why I think this is such a crazy, crazy story. There's so many angles here.
And we'll ask the Ringer writer as much as we can about his source. Writers tend to protect their sources, and he can't give us any information about that, or maybe the rules are different in 2018. I don't even know what the hell journalism is anymore.
I mean, there's no way to prove this, but Twitter sleuths, and this is such a 2018 scandal, have sort of tracked down what they believe to be the tweet that initiated the whole thing.
It was magical watching Mike Ryan at work yesterday. No, it really was. I mean, go ahead, take Dan through it, but it was magical watching Mike trying to
what happened? Explain it to me, because it felt like this is the first time. Yesterday felt like, the last time I felt like this? It was weird, because there aren't many times in my journalism lifetime that I have felt the way that I did yesterday. But the last time I did was when Manti Te'o was catfished on the Heisman was catfished as he was making his way toward the Heisman ceremony for Notre Dame, and his story fell apart because he'd been catfished. One of these, you get into a new age of sports scandal.
Right. So, Mike, again, it was magical watching him do this yesterday because I just kept saying, hey, it's Sam Hinkie or Danny Ainge. And Mike was like, no, I'm going to find out who the source is.
So at Worldwide Wob, who is
that's journalism now.
No,
you asked. I mean,
Rob,
you
laugh. Rob Perez is a must follow if you're an NBA fan. Right. Worldwide Wob is a staple of basketball Twitter.
I'm not making fun of Rob Perez. I'm laughing at the idea that the first source on this is at Worldwide Wob.
Well, hat tip to him because this is how this showed up on my timeline, and it traces back to a Ben Detrick tweet, the writer of the author of the story for The Ringer, who tweeted out on January 31st, 2018, "Dear Bryan Colangelo, turn off your phone and sit on your hands." To which a mysterious Twitter avatar, back in the day these used to be eggs, with the handle @SixersEnough, said, "Ben, loving your Sixers content. Can you follow me back so I can send you a DM about an article?" Now, Ben did follow him back. So we're thinking that's where this whole thing started.
How about that?
But who is that person?
I don't know.
Okay.
They're the person.
All right. So in 25 minutes, we will talk to the author who did this journalism. Pablo Torre. Mike Ryan has been workshopping a limited fake Pablo Torre. Let's see how that sounds.
The thing is...
Oh, God, I hate him.
Pablo or Mike?
Both.
Roy, you like that impersonation?
Oh, that's fantastic.
Let me try it again. Here's the thing.
Oh, that's good.
Guillermo, put it on the poll. Is Mike Ryan's Pablo Torre impersonation good? So Pablo Torre, he says that this story isn't surprising in 2018. And frankly, he feels on this one, I haven't heard this sound, but to say that yesterday's story is not surprising feels a little bit like the Nigerian vegetable salesman that we have accused Stugotz of being. If you don't know this story, a restaurant in Nigeria was selling human meat for consumption.
Yeah.
And the vegetable vendor outside the store said he knew they were doing that.
Knew it all along.
But he didn't bother to tell anybody until after it became a scandal. So here's Pablo Torre being the Nigerian vegetable vendor.
What I would beg everyone watching to do is zoom out a little bit, because Twitter.com here on planet Earth, speaking broadly, is where powerful people who don't need to be on Twitter regularly go to jeopardize their jobs. From the highest offices to the lowest, we see this neurological addiction take place. And with Sam Hinkie and Bryan Colangelo in particular, Bryan Colangelo came into a job that I don't think he was fully aware of. I don't think that Bryan Colangelo anticipated that he would never be able to win the love of the fan base that he desperately wanted credibility with. And so when you add those things together, someone who was sensitive, who wanted adoration, someone who was clearly obsessive in some way, all of this kind of makes sense, even if it is so jarring to see that processed, no pun intended.
But hold on a second. You started.
I can't wait for that show with Bomani and Pablo. It's going to be the smartest show that ESPN has ever done.
But that pun was totally intended.
Yeah, it was intended.
Yeah.
It was intended. And can you play that again with Pablo's highfalutin music behind it, Mike, in the appropriate spots? Do you have the technological capabilities?
He's too smart,
in
man.
2018. And Bomani's smarter. And I think Pablo would tell you that. And that's no indictment of Pablo. Like, the two of them are the smartest we've had at the network, and the network has had some smart people.
He's regularly smarter.
Close third, me.
So let's see if we can. June 4th is the Bomani and Pablo show. It's going to be high noon.
High noon.
It's growing on me.
It's going to be great. From the producers of PTI.
9 a.m. Pacific.
Hyphenewton.
Very good.
He deserves a little something there.
Well, he deserves. Hey, he gave it to himself. He just gave me 2 fingers like it was finger guns. Hyphenewton.
He tried to give it to me. I gave it back to him because I was terrified of that word.
Hyphenewton?
Just all of it, yes.
All right. So, Mike, do you have the capability or not yet?
It's going to take me a second.
Okay. So if you're not familiar with our work or the work of Pablo Torre, he's Ivy League educated, and he can use 100 syllables where only 3 are required. He's very smart.
I regularly do this.
It's getting better. It's getting better as you workshop it. It's getting better. So Pablo Torre and Bomani Jones start a show on June 4th. That's next week. And you should tune in. High noon. What time is that, Guillermo?
9 a.m. Central.
Thank you.
Be Pacific.
I did say that. I'm just filibustering to see if Mike can get the hyphanunin sound to play underneath. It's something we play anytime that Pablo Torre is condescending, anytime Pablo Torre sounds too hyphanunin. Play it at your leisure, Mike.
Anytime.
What I would beg everyone watching to do is zoom out a little bit, because Twitter.com here on planet Earth, speaking broadly, is where powerful people who don't need to be on Twitter regularly go to jeopardize their jobs. From the highest offices to the lowest, we see this neurological addiction take place. And with Sam Hinkie and Bryan Colangelo in particular, Bryan Colangelo came into a job that I don't think he was fully aware of.
Yeah, bad idea by me.
At least we didn't wait long for it.
Dame más gasolina.
You're going to want to listen and watch that show. Even if it takes you away from here, it's worth watching.
This is your bedroom. This is your bedroom with Blue Chew. Blue Chew uses the same active ingredients as in Viagra or Cialis, but now comes in chewable form. Chewable means better, cheaper, and works faster than pills. No in-person doctor visit, no waiting in line, no more awkwardness. 100% online at BlueChew.com, where your first order is free. Just pay $5 shipping. Use promo code DAN at BlueChew.com and restart the party.
Dan Le Batard.
Stugotz lies so much, and he doesn't take inventory of his lies, that even when he's telling the truth, we don't believe him on anything. What's wrong, Stugotz? What are you objecting to?
I mean, listen, I've done this to myself, so I'm frustrated at myself. I'm not going to lash out elsewhere because I understand why everyone would think that I was the one who did this. But I am sitting here telling you guys that I did not do it.
Stugotz.
You absolutely took a bite out of a piece of pizza and put it back with the rest of the pizza.
It was me.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
We have questions about the story that engulfed sports yesterday. The Sixers president, with evidently, according to circumstantial evidence, 5 burner accounts where he would criticize his players and praise himself. I've got a lot of questions for this author, not just about how the story came together. My guess is he's more informed than anyone who's discussing this right now, because if you believe it was Colangelo's wife or a family member, if you're willing to extend the benefit of doubt, and I wonder if he is, if you believe it's a family member, then this person has been wronged.
Yes, 100%.
And I don't know what's true here and what's not true, but we will talk to the person who's more informed than we are in 15 minutes.
There's only one thing that we can say definitively so far. Colangelo's copped out only one of the burner accounts, and it was one just used to follow that didn't really tweet back. However, the circumstantial evidence is such when the Sixers were presented with just a couple of these Twitter accounts, all of a sudden all of them at the exact same time went private upon hearing that knowledge.
So we will talk to him in 12 minutes. But I want you to experience what my life was a few minutes ago.
What happened?
You happened.
Oh, what did I do? I was just enjoying some pizza, talking a little baseball with the guys.
So it wasn't talking a little baseball with the guys. It was, and you saw the look on my face when you came in here and you blurted your hot take at me and then ran away. You ran away and then wouldn't look at me again until you were at a distance.
Just talking hardball, man.
And so this is what happened, right? Because I'm getting all of these texts and tweets from people who are still agitated about what I said an hour ago about the anthem. And so a guy's writing in, Dan, are you forgetting that these black athletes are millionaires also? Use their power and money to promote their cause on a different, more widely viewed platform. Dan, are you forgetting that these black athletes are millionaires also? How'd that work out for Kaepernick? The whole power of being a millionaire. Pretty good? No, because people with more power eliminated him. And what I'm telling you is that those people with that power, the players can't do this by themselves. The owners can. The owners absolutely can. They can fight with their FU money together. They could, if they wanted to, if it was their inclination, they could absolutely fight the president on this.
Well, if you were to believe Colin Kaepernick and his attorneys, the millionaire ran into billionaires.
That's right. So, but what I'm saying is the only kind of people in sports with the FU money that Trump allegedly has, I'm telling you, rich people laugh at Trump's finances. Like in New York, going back to New York,
rich people.
They didn't think of him as one, like he got the fame because in New York, everything gets Times Squared and you get, he's a real estate mogul and a television star.
Right.
But the owners,
the top 1% of the 1% laughed at Donald Trump.
The owners in sports,
yeah.
The owners in sports have enough money to come back in him. But as I'm reading this avalanche that's coming in from every angle, Stugotz walks into the studio, and this is what he says.
Well,
what? Are you going to let me say it, or you want to say it?
No, go ahead. I thought you wanted me to say it, but you say it. It's fine. You'll say it better.
No, go ahead. Say it the way that you said it to me. So just everyone imagine I'm sitting here, and this is 24 hours removed from Stugotz leaving the room because he said, "I'm so sorry. I'm so annoying." And then he claimed his, Ambien or his medication, something that yesterday he was revving high, like everything that he said blowtorched against my face and scalded my eyebrows.
Been better today, right? Took 10 milligrams less.
So tell the people then what you said.
I said no one has ever done less with more than Jim Leland.
And then he left the room.
Yep, sprinted.
I mean, I don't even understand. I don't understand the context for it.
What do you mean? He had a Hall of Fame team in Detroit. Me, Guillermo, Chris, we were talking some hardball, eating some pizza during the break. He had a Hall of Fame team in Detroit where I believe Torrey Hunter one year was like his fifth outfielder, and he did absolutely nothing with his team. I'm telling you, like Guillermo will go through the roster for you. It is incredible. It is littered with Cy Young Award winners and Hall of Famers. And he did nothing with it. Nothing. Made the playoffs a couple of times, got to an ALCS. But anything short of a World Series title is a terrible job by Jim Leland.
Here's the thing. I used to think Dusty Baker was the person that did less with more. Like, no one has done less with more than Dusty Baker. Because he had the Giants, he had the Cubs, he had the Reds, he had the Nationals. He had crazy players and never won anything. But then I saw this little stretch by Jimmy from 2011 to 2014 with the Tigers. Those teams were stacked. And if you go back to who he had on the Pirates, if the Marlins didn't win that World Series, he'd be one of the all-time losers in sports, right?
I forgot about Bonds Bonilla Vince like.
Didn't you talk to Jim Leland yesterday?
Yeah, I talked to him yesterday. He's a nice man. He said to say hello, but he was too busy to do our baseball nonsense about Canseco having the ball bounce off his head because he was playing golf.
I mean, Dan, we're talking about Miguel Cabrera and Prince Fielder and Torrey Hunter and Ian Kinsler and David Price and Max Scherzer and Porcello and Jabba Chamberlain.
Verlander. Anibal Sanchez was good pitching back then. These teams were ridiculous.
Scherzer was like the number 3 on that team.
Yeah. Yes. Yep. And now he's like the best pitcher in baseball. I mean, the New York Times just wrote up like he's the best pitcher of this generation. Just wrote a whole story about him. Jim did nothing with it. I mean, if your 3 is Scherzer going up against another team's 3, you should probably win a World Series.
What does that have to do with anything we've been talking about today?
Don Le Batard.
Texter writes in, does ESPN brass listen to this show? They can't.
Stugotz.
How could this possibly continue in a prime spot for this long? It's just truly awful radio.
This is the Don Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
Ty Lue just revealed that his medical leave during the season was for anxiety.
LeBron, man.
We will get to that in a second.
What he does.
Ben Detrick with us from The Ringer. He wrote the story everybody was talking about in sports yesterday. Thank you for making the time for us. I have a lot of questions. Can you take us through how long ago this story began and where it began for the uninitiated?
Yeah. Hey guys. It started. I said February 1st. Now I think that's accurate as when we made like some inroads. He had hit me up on Twitter and Instagram, and then by the time we actually started discussing things, I would say it was like February 1st. And he sent me an email, and he outlined that there were these accounts that pointed in a direction, and he gave me some of the findings from his own research. And the way he described it was he had seen a tweet that seemed to reveal insider information about Jahlil Okafor. And that made him curious, and he found other accounts that were saying similar things. So he started running data sets, which I don't understand that much. That's, but he started running data sets and found accounts that had similar followings and discussed similar items. A lot of people have hit me up. Is this someone who was like, a data guy who had a gripe with the Sixers or so forth? I don't have any evidence that says, yes, that's the case.
How did you vet the source?
For me, it was more about what he gave me than who gave me it. Because it was really like, here are these accounts. And if I was convinced that they were not him and it was not a elaborate ruse being played upon me, and I was, of course, really skeptical. I didn't want to look like an idiot. So I went through what he gave me more than being, okay, who is this person? Because ultimately, whether he had a axe to grind or not, it was more about what I was going to do with the information.
Is there anything in the story, because these things are really uncomfortable, all doing this and then having the person in the middle of it deny it this strongly, is there anything in the story that you wish you had back, or are you good with 100% of the reporting?
100%.
Okay. That's a good answer, because so you weren't shaken in any way by how strongly he was denying everything yesterday.
Well, as to your point, you would like things to be more neat. You'd like things to fall into a bow in a way that is very easy. I didn't think that was going to be the case with the story. I thought the response would be what it was. I think we were very careful and looked things over and worded things, and it was about Venn diagrams that all went in a certain direction, and we didn't make any specific accusations. That was the story. We presented evidence, and people could draw their own conclusions.
Is it possible, like when the idea is thrown around of it was a family member, it was someone else, it's not him, like what can you talk about there? I understand there's a difference between a reporter and an opinion giver. What can you tell us there about if it might be, like what might be his immunity here?
I don't know. It's tough for me to answer that, but I think there were a lot of theories and a lot of compelling, I don't want to use the word evidence, but compelling items that were brought up late last night on Twitter that also point to that direction, maybe in a slightly different way. I'm sorry, I just have to be careful here.
No, I understand. I'm just curious because we can't go back and fix this. And you laid out the circumstantial evidence, like, so people understand. These things are vetted by lawyers, and as he just told you, he's been working on this for months, okay? This is not sloppy journalism. This is him putting together a string of dots on the internet. But we consumed it as if it was fact yesterday when it was circumstantial evidence, and you were careful with your hedging of words. But is it possible that it's his wife?
I think the Venn diagrams that include one person really include another. I would say that there are a lot of commonalities between different people. I think that's the best way that I can phrase it. If you look at Toronto and you look at, Toronto youth basketball, and you look at University of Chicago basketball, and you look at the Sixers, and you look at the grievances that were expressed throughout, there's more than one person that could be.
What do you say to people who say to you, Ben, that you have been a supporter of Sam Hinkie and a guy that has been on Bryan Colangelo basically the entire season for some of his moves?
I would say that's the reason that the source came to me, So I felt that there was an opportunity for someone who was trying to make me look bad. So I approached it with a lot of skepticism. I think, you're on Twitter and I'm saying, I'm critiquing moves. That's different from what I'm putting my name on as a journalist and what I'm giving to The Ringer or what I'm giving to the New York Times or whoever sees fit to actually pay me for this.
He did a very good job here. This Ringer story is comprehensive. Ben Detrick with us on ESPN Radio. As you survey everything that happened here and everything that you reported, what would you say is the most convincing evidence that this was him doing it?
Well, I'm not saying it was him because, as I said, there's been evidence that came out in the last couple days last night that do not necessarily say it was him. I believe that the Venn diagrams that say who this is coming from are intact, and we were correct. In terms of the most compelling evidence was when I contacted the team, I spoke with their PR representative, and then he spoke with one person. And after that conversation, 3 of the accounts that I had not mentioned went dark. I didn't tell anybody. The source didn't know I was contacting the team at that point. They went down.
You did that strategically, correct?
Yeah. The idea was to try to make stronger IRL evidence, for lack of a better phrase. We had a lot of Twitter forensics. We had a lot of circumstantial stuff, and there was a way to narrow the focus with information that was not on the internet, if that makes sense.
Ben, I know you're sticking to your story, and you should, but if it's not him, then what?
I'm not saying it's him.
Yeah, that's the thing. We jumped to that conclusion. The media was real eager to jump to that conclusion. I'm telling you, the story is thorough. And can you explain to people who don't understand, Ben, what this has to go through before you're allowed to put it online? Like, this is the difference between fake news and real news and 2018 journalism. Please explain to people how thorough you have to be about this as a contributor to the New York Times and someone who's doing journalism for the Ringer.
I think it's getting as many people involved as can, whether it's editors, people with ideas, people with legal understanding, people who understand verbiage, phraseology, et cetera, people who can poke holes in your ideas and your theories and make sure that everything stands up. And I think we went extra hard to ensure that this information was all accurate and that we didn't say anything that was not proven by those things.
What's the information that came out last night? Because it's a lot easier when the entire internet is trying to solve the mystery and has all the right questions. What's the evidence that came out last night that you're like, I wish we'd done that. That would have been a good thing to do.
Oh, well, here's the thing. When reporting this story, because of how delicate it was and because these accounts could go offline, I wasn't able to talk to people. I wasn't able to do certain things. So even scrolling through these accounts was stressful because if I hit like accidentally, the whole thing might go bust. So once it's out there, and I think it's amazing the work that people did so fast, and they're so much smarter and more hardworking than I am, and they in 24 hours just opened this entire other element to the story. But I just was under a very there was a lot of restrictions. It was very difficult. You couldn't contact people. You couldn't talk about it publicly. So, are there things that I wish we had found now when I see what people did? Sure. It just was a lot more difficult to find at that point.
All right, Ben, help us out with something. Was Simmons at all happy, like a little smile, anything, when he learned the news?
He just told me that he was happy we ran the story after it ran. He did not say anything about being gleeful or anything in that way whatsoever. He was just like, "Hey, good work, man." Like, that was it.
What's your sense, though,
extent of it.
What's your sense, though?
Pretty
well.
You're going to keep pushing this. Yeah. You're going to keep doing. This is the place that you're going to choose to be the badgering reporter. Really?
Yeah. Okay. Because it's really all I care about.
Okay. Right. All right. So, all right. Well, then let's just. Did Simmons did he order the code red? If the same story was something you had on Danny Ainge, is Simmons running it?
I trust that he would let me do my job.
Ben, good work. Thank you for making time for us. We do appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. It's great.
All right, Ben.
Man, the Twitter audience is annoying. Woo!
Next. You're holding up the line, ma'am.
What did you say?
You're next in line for the water slide, ma'am. Feet forward and enjoy the ride.
Okay, dearie. This does look fun. You melted me. I've melted.
The Wicked Witch of the West on a water slide? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
See what you've done. Oh!
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Dan Le Batard.
Dan has it.
Oh, my God. No, this is a Bomani question. Mavis Staples, go.
Stugotz.
You can't hold papers together without some Mavis Staples. I mean, everyone knows that.
This is the Dan Le Batard Show with the Stugotz on ESPN Radio.
What are you laughing about, Mike? What's so funny?
You got me. I was I got an avail for Michael Vick earlier in the week.
Oh boy.
And he was promoting something, and I responded because I know what that interview, I know what we'd want to talk about. So I replied, I'm like, just to be clear, like I want to make sure Michael is comfortable talking about his past while he promotes his product that you're making him available.
He is comfortable talking about his past.
Hold on a second. Hold on.
The response I got is, I'll check with Michael and his team. By past, do you mean the dog fighting?
What else?
And it's on the list.
The jail time.
His time at Virginia Tech. Beamer stories.
We have at least 12 Beamer Bowl questions.
I mean, I'm perfectly happy asking him nothing but questions about his brother if he wants. That'll even be more fun.
You'll have a better chance if you ask him about his past.
Right? I mean, he does not have any problems talking about his past. None. Zero. At Le Batard Show on Twitter is where you reach us if you want to partake in the polls. We had a lot of them today, and they were all over the place. So let's see where this ends up.
All right. Do you feel old watching Pudge Rodriguez's son pitch for the Giants? 83% of the audience said yes. Should the NBA change their logo to Michael Jordan? 64% of the audience said yes.
Would LeBron allow it? Silver wouldn't even do it to LeBron, would he? Be great to do it while LeBron is in the finals.
That would be great. Announce it before tonight's game.
Right. I mean, Jerry West was 1-8 in the finals. Mr. Clutch.
Would Nike allow it? I don't think Jordan would allow it.
Is the guy who insists on putting Jerry West third on the list of all-time shooting guards annoying? 88% of the audience said yes. Do you like sharpening pencils? 62% of the audience said yes.
$1.
Why? I corrected myself. And nothing happened. And no phlegm into the microphone, nothing.
No, you read the internet wrong. That's a fine for you. Don't do this. Just pay the fine.
I don't know if I have money. And Tone, $2 for you. I mean, I was going to pay the fine that you levied on me, and I got no money. Too bad.
I just saw 100.
I mean, you weren't supposed to see that 100.
All right, it's $3 now.
Get out of here.
At Le Batard Show on Twitter with the polls.
Too rich for my blood. Where were we? Do you like the sound of a good pencil sharpener? Who doesn't? 70% of the audience said yes. Give him a little something, something. Awesome.
Smell it.
Oh, smell. Yeah, the smell is great.
A little uneven.
Yeah, blow off the...
Yeah, you don't want that in your nose. Yep. So good.
In the Cody Hotel, do you find a heart-shaped vibrating bed or two twin beds?
That's a good question.
It really is. 59% of the audience said two twin beds.
No, you had to put coin-operated. Coin-operated would have gotten the vote I wanted.
All right, sorry. Do busy signals still exist? Busy signals still exist. 64% of the audience said yes. Do teenagers know what a busy signal sounds like? 85% of the audience said no. Was Mark Harmon the poor man's Eminem?
No,
it's on there. I'm just reading what's on there. And 62% of the audience said no. Was Mark Harmon the poor man's Kevin Costner is also on there. 79% of the audience said yes to that.
That is how that went.
Yeah, It is how it went. I know.
Did Stugotz call a crisis a crisis?
You did it both times.
Pretty overwhelming, man.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
I didn't do it twice.
You did
there.
it.
Put
Yeah,
that
you
on
did.
the poll.
No, you just pronounced it wrong both times
No
there,
way.
which would be comedic perfection if you knew how to do that kind of comedy, as opposed to just organically giving us what we need every day.
Jesus Christus. Did Stugotz call a crisis a crisis? 95% of the audience said yes. Are you surprised that Chase Utley is still in the league? 80% of the audience said yes. What an odd question this is. Would Stugotz do well in jail? 71% of the audience said no. Give me enough credit. Who has more FU power and money, Jerry Jones or Kim Kardashian? How'd you want this one to go?
I didn't have a rooting preference in this particular race.
60% of the audience said Jerry Jones. Should What Are You Doing Wegner replace Do You Believe in Miracles as the greatest call in the history of broadcasting? 64% of the audience said yes. Is Mike Ryan's Pablo Torre impression good? 53% of the audience said yes.
The thing is,
it's getting better, man.
What else you got? What else you got in your limited fake Tory arsenal?
Here's the thing.